The Superwoman script. Nobody asked you to memorize. You know what nobody tells you about being strong? That one day you'll wake up and realize you don't even know who you are without the weight. I recently had the privilege of sitting down with Lakisha Booker, a woman who is rewriting what resilience looks like for Black women everywhere. Lakisha is a mother of eight, a faith warrior, a community builder, and someone who has walked through fire and come out the other side, not just surviving, but teaching others how to truly live. She's making the world better by showing women that transformation isn't about perfection, it's about permission. Permission to heal, permission to rest, permission to be soft. And today I want to share what I learned from her because her story isn't just hers, it's ours. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, where we unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom we deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. And today we're talking about what happens when you've been strong for so long that you forget softness is even an option. Let's start here. How many of you were taught that being strong meant never breaking? That being dependable meant never saying no? That being a good woman, a good mother, a good friend, a good employee meant carrying everyone else's burdens like they were yours to bear? Yeah, me too. And here's the thing, that script, it's a trap. Because when survival becomes your identity, you stop living. You start performing, you start grinding, you start wearing a cape you never asked for, and suddenly everyone expects you to fly, but nobody asks if you're tired. During my conversation with Lakisha Booker, she said something that stopped me in my tracks. She said, I realized I was so busy being strong for everyone else that I forgot I was allowed to need something too. Allowed. That word hit me like a freight train because how many of us are walking around waiting for permission to rest, to cry, to admit we're not okay, to say, I can't do this right now? Lakeisha's journey wasn't easy. She's navigated trauma, loss, motherhood, faith crises, and the kind of life circumstances that would break most people. But what struck me most wasn't just what she survived, it was how she chose to heal. Not by pretending the pain didn't exist, not by slapping on a smile and pushing through, but by giving herself permission to feel it, to sit with it, and to let it transform her. She told me, faith didn't remove my pain, it gave me a place to put it. And I think that's where so many of us get stuck. We think healing means the hurt goes away, but healing is actually about learning how to hold the hurt without letting it hold you. Now, let's talk about this Superwoman cape we've all been wearing. You know the one, the invisible one that makes you say yes when you mean no, the one that makes you show up even when you're running on fumes, the one that makes you believe that if you're not doing everything for everyone, you're failing. Here's what Lakeisha Booker taught me about that cape. It's heavy, it's suffocating, and it was never yours to wear in the first place. She shared with me how she spent years believing that her value was tied to how much she could carry: 8 children, a household, a community, expectations, trauma, grief. She carried it all because that's what strong women do, right? Wrong. Strength isn't about how much you can carry. Strength is about knowing when to put it down. And that's the revolution we're talking about here. The soft girl era isn't about becoming weak. It's about redefining what strength actually means. It's about saying, I'm not going to break myself to hold everyone else together anymore. It's about boundaries, real ones, the kind that make people uncomfortable because they're so used to you being available, agreeable, and self sacrificing. Lakeisha told me about the first time she said no without explaining herself. She said it felt like betrayal, like she was letting people down, like she was being selfish. But you know what happened? Nothing. The world didn't end. People adjusted, and she got to breathe. That's the thing about boundaries. They feel radical because we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is measured by our availability. But boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges. Bridges that protect your peace while still allowing connection. And let me tell you, protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. One of the most powerful things Lakisha shared with me was this: my happiness is helping my community, but my sadness runs deeper. Can we just sit with that for a second? Because how many of us are out here pouring into everyone else while our own cups are bone dry? How many of us are smiling in public and crying in private? How many of us have made helping others our identity because it's easier than facing our own pain? Lakeisha's story reminded me that you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. You can't rest if you won't stop. And you can't be soft if you're still convinced that softness equals weakness. So let's redefine softness right now. Softness is not fragility. Softness is not passivity. Softness is not giving up. Softness is the courage to feel, to rest, to say no, to cry, to laugh, to take up space without apologizing for it. Softness is choosing yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of reverence. Softness is the exhale you've been holding in for years. And here's the truth that Lakeisha Booker embodies so beautifully: softness doesn't make you less powerful, it makes you more whole. She told me about how faith became her anchor, not because it gave her all the answers, but because it gave her permission to not have them. She said, I stopped trying to be God and started trusting Him. And I think that's where so many of us are stuck. We're trying to control everything, fix everything, be everything, because we're terrified of what happens if we let go. But letting go isn't losing control, it's gaining freedom. During our conversation, Lakeisha talked about the moment she realized she didn't have to have it all figured out. She didn't have to be perfect. She didn't have to perform. She just had to show up as she was and trust that she was enough. And that's the message I want you to walk away with today. You are enough, not because of what you do, not because of how much you carry, not because of how strong you appear. You are enough because you exist. You are enough because you're here, breathing, trying, surviving, and maybe, just maybe, starting to believe that you deserve more than survival. You deserve joy. You deserve rest. You deserve softness. And you don't need anyone's permission to claim it. Lakeisha Booker's story is a testament to what's possible when you stop running from your pain and start walking toward your peace. When you stop performing strength and start practicing softness. When you stop waiting for permission and start giving it to yourself. She's a mother of eight who didn't just survive, she transformed. She's a woman of faith who didn't just endure, she evolved. She's a community leader who didn't just give, she learned to receive. And she's proof that your past doesn't define your future. Your pain doesn't disqualify you from peace. And your survival story can become your softness story. So here's what I need you to hear: not just hear, but feel. Not just feel, but believe. Not just believe, but act on. You are not required to carry what breaks you. You are not obligated to be strong in ways that make you small. You are not meant to live your entire life in survival mode, waiting for permission to rest, waiting for someone to notice you're drowning, waiting for the world to finally say, okay, you've done enough. Because that day will never come. Not because the world is cruel, but because the world has learned to depend on your strength. And it will keep depending on it till you decide that your peace matters more than their comfort. This is your permission slip. This is your invitation. This is your moment. Take off the cape. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Not because you're giving up, but because you're choosing yourself. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that you can't pour from an empty cup and you've been running on fumes for far too long. The revolution isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the whisper that says, I'm allowed to rest. It's the boundary that says, I'm not available right now. It's the exhale that says, I don't have to have it all together. Softness is not the absence of strength. Softness is strength that has finally learned to breathe. So I'm asking you right now, wherever you are, whatever you're carrying, whatever cape you're wearing, put it down just for a moment, just long enough to remember what it feels like to be free. And then when you're ready, when you've rested, when you've healed, when you've remembered who you are beneath all that weight, pick up only what serves you. Pick up only what aligns with your peace. Pick up only what honors the woman you're becoming, not the woman the world demanded you be. This is the soft girl era. This is the sacred pause. This is the moment you stop surviving and start living. And the world doesn't need another woman pretending to be strong. The world needs you, healed, rested, whole, and soft, showing other women that is possible. So go, be soft, be free, be unapologetically, radically, beautifully you. Because that's the revolution. And it starts with you.